Welcome everyone to the seminar, and thanks to our speakers for their time and expertise this afternoon. My name is Professor Tony Roskilly from Durham Energy Institute and at Durham University. And this event is organized through the EPSRC Network for Hydrogen Fuel Transportation, and is part of a series of events looking at different aspects of hydrogen research across all transportation sectors. This week we are looking at the challenges of using hydrogen within the aviation sector, and we're delighted to welcome two speakers who will be providing their thoughts from a research perspective, from an industrial perspective. We have asked each of the speakers to present for around 20 minutes, and once they've finished, we will open up to a Q&A session. I'll introduce our first speaker, and it's Dr. Cristina Garcia-Duffy, who is head of technology at the Aerospace Technology Institute, and we'll be presenting on the 5 W's and how of H2 in aviation. So within ATI, Cristina has responsibilities for the development and delivery of the Institute's sustainability vision for aerospace sector. Since 2014, she has also led the developing in the technology aspects for the ATI strategies and for the shaping and launching of projects to deliver against the strategy. Prior to ATI, Cristina held various management positions within the R&T department at Leonardo Helicopters. Cristina holds a PhD, MSc and BSc in aerospace engineering. So over to you, Cristina.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you everybody for joining this session this afternoon. Thank you for having me here. I'm going to provide an overview of the why, the what, the where, the when, and the who is working in hydrogen these days in the UK within the aviation sector. And then we'll talk about how the ATI is working with the community to deliver some very exciting projects in the area. So a little bit about the ATI to begin with, just for those of you who may not be familiar. We were set up in 2013, 2014. We are an independent company, but we were formed as a collaboration between UK government, the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and the UK industry through the Aerospace Growth Partnership. We were set up to define the UK National Aerospace Technology Strategy and then to deliver that strategy from an industry perspective via funding of projects. The budget that we were assigned was 3.9 billion of funding, where half of it comes from the UK government and the other half comes from industry. We've already allocated around 2.9 billion of that during the last 7 years. We have about 320 projects. About half of those are currently live. Others have finished already. And we're always seeking new ways to stimulating technological innovation. We don't do that through programs. We have programs of different types. We have support for startups through our accelerator program. We collaborate with NATEB, which encourages new entries into the R&T sphere in the UK to deliver short, small projects and get the knowledge around how to progress and get bigger and bigger projects going forward. And we launched this strategy. You can see there the the screen Accelerating Ambition in November of last year. Sustainability is central to that strategy, and as you may all know, because it's common for all other sectors, for aviation as well, decarbonization is a key priority going forward. So the sustainability strategy at the Aerospace Technology Institute is very much geared towards decarbonizing the sector. Don't know if you're familiar, we have decarbonization roadmaps for aerospace, and these have been delivered by a number of different organizations. You can see here on the left top hand side, there's the global view of things. This is a roadmap delivered by IATA, which is a membership organization representing a lot of the airlines in the world. And the roadmaps all have the same composition. So you have on the y-axis the amount of CO2 that is attributed to the aviation sector. This represents the CO2 emitted when aircraft fly, what we call tailpipe emissions. And on the x-axis, you can see the time scales. And all the roadmaps agree that there's going to be a basket of measures that will get us to some degree of decarbonization. These include technology, so improving, having more energy efficient products, aircraft. It includes operations, so enabling the aircraft to fly more efficiently from point A to point B. It includes a big chunk on what we call sustainable aviation fuel. So it's moving towards an alternative energy source for aircraft that will take us from kerosene more and more towards bio-derived or synthetically derived sustainable aviation fuels. We have different targets. You can see that the UK view and the European view go towards a net zero by 2050, whereas at global view, we currently stand with a voluntary commitment to reduce emissions by 50% from the year 2005. So things are changing in the sector, and at different regions, we have different aims. So the thing that all three types of what they call roadmaps have in common is that hydrogen will take a very important role in decarbonizing the sector. So this is why we need hydrogen in aviation. And I will explain a little bit about the pathways for hydrogen. So where do we use hydrogen in aviation? And the simple answer is for fuels, on the aircraft, and also at airports. And what we're doing with hydrogen is pursuing different pathways. You can see here, I mentioned synthetic sustainable aviation fuels. So these are to replace kerosene, and they are currently in development. There's 2 sustainable aviation fuel plants already producing product for the globe, and many other facilities are currently in development or in planning stages. The idea is that you substitute the kerosene that aircraft use for these new types of fuels. There's a couple of different types. There's currently 7 pathways identified and certified. The blending ratios for these pathways vary, but in general, they get up to a maximum of 50% blend. So you would still have the other 50% coming from kerosene. we are now working on improving and being able to certify products with a higher blend ratio. Bio-derived fuels, those are fuels coming from recycled oils or plant or waste, are now the ones that are more in production. From 2035 onwards, there's a large potential for those to be what we call e-fuels, electrofuels, or power to liquid, which means that you get electricity from a renewable source, and you get water, electrolyze the water, and produce hydrogen that is then combined with carbon, ideally captured directly from the air, to produce your synthetic kerosene. So this is one of the pathways that we have for hydrogen in aviation going forwards, and that's at fuel level. In terms of the aircraft level, we have fuel cells, and I will show you a few of the programs already ongoing. You could use the fuel cell to for example, an auxiliary power unit on your aircraft, supply additional power if required, or you could use it as a direct propeller into the propeller. So you would have your hydrogen fuel cell driving a number of propellers on your aircraft. You could have fuel cells with both compressed hydrogen or liquid hydrogen, and we'll talk about those two different pathways a little bit later. The third pathway on aircraft is hydrogen combustion through an internal combustion engine, and that is a longer term sort of solution. We don't currently have any active projects on this area, just elements of those, but you could burn hydrogen in a combustion process. I guess the biggest challenge for aviation is that in order to meet the space requirements in the aircraft and to not have storage tanks that are very large, you have to liquefy the hydrogen, and that happens at about minus 250 degrees. So a lot of the systems required on the aircraft need to change to accommodate for that. You have to have tanks that can accommodate that liquid hydrogen being stored, but you also have to change your thermal management, your pipes, your fuel systems, and how the hydrogen is mixed with air before it goes into the combustion chamber. So it's big architectural changes at whole aircraft level that would need to happen for this to be implemented. The other pathway that I wanted to highlight today is the use of hydrogen at airports. And already some airports in the world are using hydrogen for their ground support equipment, their buses, their forklifts, all the ground vehicles. And this is to prove that hydrogen can be integrated into an airport environment. We will be releasing a paper later in the year. This is a collaboration between the ATI and the Airports Council International, with inputs from various other stakeholders to look at the options for hydrogen introduction into an airport and how to use that hydrogen to power your ground support equipment, but also for aircraft purposes and perhaps others in the terminal as energy storage and so on. So those are the pathways that we're investigating. And if I move on to the next, so when do we apply these different pathways for hydrogen? So you see in this chart, going from an aircraft with a less number of passengers and shorter ranges we would be in the bottom left-hand side of that chart that I'm showing. We can use fuel cells for short-range general aviation type aircraft, which is happening now, and increasing in capability during the next few years. Fuel cells as non-propulsive energy sources, I already mentioned the option of using these as auxiliary power units, and these are also being developed currently and will be available in the next few years. You could use fuel cells and for potential urban air mobility, air taxi type aircraft. You can see here a UK a vertical aerospace concept going forwards in the next decade or so. And then as you go up the number of passengers in terms of capacity and the range, you could use hydrogen for sub-regional and regional type of aircraft, either with internal combustion in gas turbines, using liquid hydrogen in fuel cells, or as a combination with hydrocarbon sort of fuel, so a hybrid electric configuration. We don't yet know where the technology and, to some extent, more importantly, the commercial case will take us in this space. So we don't know where the boundaries will be and where the commercial, the market applicability, the infrastructure considerations and the commercial side of things will make sense. So the ATI received funding from BASE last year. We are currently undertaking a 1-year feasibility study that is bringing 100 engineers from UK organizations. They're being seconded into the ATI, and this is under the banner of the Fly Zero project shown there. And what the project is trying to do is, the vision is to see how we could deliver a zero carbon emitting aircraft that is tailpipe emissions by the end of the decade. And they're doing studies to look at the technical feasibility, the commercial viability, the infrastructure, the policies, all the economics that need to be in place for that to happen, and come up with a couple of concepts that then can be taken on by the supply chain to develop their components and the equipment that would support such an aircraft. You can see there on the slide as well, towards the regional and medium range side of things, that's one of the Airbus concepts. Airbus announced last year that they're studying the feasibility of 3 different aircraft configurations. They're all hybrid electric using hydrogen with a maximum capacity of about 200 passengers and a range of less than 2,000 nautical miles. They're targeting an entry into service for those aircraft, or one of the aircraft, by 2035. And then if you look at the right top hand side of the chart, you will see the long haul, long range, very high capacity aircraft. Those aircraft, for those aircraft, replacing kerosene with sustainable aviation fuels that use hydrogen is the only option technologically. And this will be in parallel with developing ever more efficient aircraft propulsion structures and systems. Moving on to the next slide, I wanted to talk about the WHO. So WHO is working on hydrogen in aviation within the UK. I'm just providing here just a snippet of a few projects. On the left-hand side, you have the Rolls-Royce Cirrus project. They tested a Trent, one of their Trent engines back in November last year with 100% sustainable aviation fuel. As I mentioned, current certification only allows for up to a 50% blend of SAF with kerosene. So this is an initiative to be able to assess whether or not 100% use is possible, and to further enhance the decarbonization potential, but also to start the process of being able to certify engine and aircraft to 100% SAF. The one on the right-hand side is a GKN project that we just got launched at the beginning of this year. The project is called H2 Gear, so hydrogen gear. And this project is developing a powertrain that uses liquid hydrogen in a fuel cell. This application will be targeted at a sub-regional aircraft, and the plan is to have it ready for market by 2026. And then the third set of projects that I show there are the Zero Avia High Flyer projects. I'm not going to get into that because we have Julian Renz from Zero Avia here today, who will provide all the details on their vision and work in this area. And finally, how is ATI delivering the hydrogen vision? So one side is the projects, the other side is how we partner with external organizations. We drive technology working groups, looking at developing roadmaps for different technologies. And we also work with other UK organizations from other sectors as well to look at how we can better leverage our knowledge and our needs to collaborate more widely. On the top top left-hand side, you see there is a roadmap for sustainable aviation fuels. This is not ours, it's from the Sustainable Aviation Coalition, showing how they see SAF production coming into play in the UK, the volumes that we will be able to deliver in the next few decades. They are working with BASE, the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and with the Department for Transport to launch a 1 billion program. And the 1 billion would be directed to constructing a sustainable aviation fuels pilot plant in the UK, or a network of plants for some research and technology projects, and a clearinghouse. We at the ATI, SAF is not our core. We mainly develop projects that deliver aircraft technologies, but we are seeing an increased interest in proposals for SAF-related projects. And then on the hydrogen spectrum, well, I'm here at the EPSRC Network H2 webinar. Back in the summer, the ATI had the pleasure to collaborate with this EPSRC network. We had a brilliant student called Ellie Bacon, and you can see her there doing a presentation for the Department for Transport. She did a brilliant job in bringing together all the knowledge, the literature of existing research and past research to do some work on identifying early stage research opportunities for hydrogen in this arena. We also have that collaboration with Airports Council International, and we're delivering a paper in the next couple of months looking at considerations of hydrogen integration into airports. We are working with a group of the catapult centres, the UK catapult centres, the Oil and Gas Technology Centre, the Advanced Propulsion Centres, and others to deliver these end-to-end hydrogen roadmap. You can see there a picture from Arup. So we're looking at partnering with organizations in the production side of things, with organizations in the distribution and storage side of things, and then finally at the end use with other transport areas to look at opportunities for collaboration around piping, manufacturing technologies, and also making sure that when we develop standards for aviation, they're in accordance to other existing standards. We have a couple of insight papers and collaborations going with the industry. We have a hydrogen fuel cells paper coming out in the summer. We've developed that roadmap with a lot of the UK industry and academia in the sort of fuel cell aviation area. And we're establishing a working group to look at hydrogen storage on aircraft, so hydrogen tanks for aircraft. And I hope this gives you an overview of some of the activities we're pursuing. As I said, hydrogen is very important for aviation, essential for decarbonization, and we look forward to continuing working in this area in the coming years and decades, I guess. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Cristina, for a very interesting presentation.